There's this weird moment that happens twice a month. Your phone buzzes, paycheck deposited, and for about 6 hours, maybe a day if you're lucky, you feel like you can breathe. You check your bank account without that little knot in your stomach. You add something to your cart without calculating if it'll bounce. Maybe you even think about that vacation you've been putting off for 2 years. And then Monday rolls around. The money's already spoken for. Rent, car payment, that credit card you swore you'd pay off, student loans that'll outlive your houseplants, the same groceries that somehow cost $40 more than last month. And you're back to checking your balance before buying coffee. Here's the thing that nobody talks about. That cycle, that paycheck to paycheck treadmill where you work harder, make more, but somehow always end up in the same place, that's not an accident. It's not because you're bad with money. It's not because you didn't hustle enough or pick the wrong career or spend too much on avocado toast. It's because the entire salary system, the way you get paid, how often you get paid, the psychology around those deposits, is designed to keep you running in place. I'm talking about the salary trap. And once you see how it works, you can't unsee it. Most people think the salary trap is about not making enough money. Get a raise, get a promotion, double your income, problem solved, right? Wrong. Because here's what actually happens. Since January 2021, average wages in America have increased 21.5%. Sounds great, except inflation over that same period, 22.7%. So even with raises, even with promotions, the average American worker has lost ground. We're making more dollars, but buying less stuff. Let me put that in real terms. From March 2006 to December 2025, the nominal average weekly wage rose from $686 to $1,266. That's an 84.6% increase. Sounds incredible, right? Your paycheck nearly doubled in 20 years. But once you adjust for inflation, once you account for what that money actually buys, the real wage growth was only 13.8%. Your nominal raise was $580 per week. Your real raise, $154 per week. The rest just evaporated into higher costs. But here's where it gets really interesting. Even in the periods where wages did beat inflation, like right now, where wage growth is at 3.8% and inflation is at 2.7%, most people still feel broke. December 2024 to December 2025, real wages grew 0.92%. Know what that translates to? An extra $12 per week in actual purchasing power. $12 after an entire year of working. That's not a wealth gap, that's a rounding error. And get this, according to Cleveland Fed research, only 57% of American workers saw their paychecks grow faster than inflation in mid-2025. That means 43% of workers, nearly half, are actively losing ground even when the headlines say wages are rising. For those workers, every year they work hard, every raise they get, they end up poorer than they started. But the salary trap isn't just about the numbers on your paycheck. It's about how getting paid changes the way you think about money, spend money, and plan your life. Most people don't realize that the biweekly paycheck, that standard get paid every 2 weeks system that basically everyone uses, is actually optimized for someone else's benefit, not yours. Your employer loves it because it smooths out their cash flow. Banks love it because it keeps you in that borrowing and spending cycle. Credit card companies love it because you're more likely to carry a balance between checks. But for you, it creates this psychological trap that keeps you from ever actually getting ahead. Research from the Wharton School found something fascinating. The more frequently people get paid, the poorer they feel. People who get paid weekly or biweekly consistently report lower subjective wealth than people who get paid monthly, even when the total is exactly the same. Why? Because every time you get a paycheck, your brain registers it as a financial reset. Money in, bills out. Money in, bills out. You never get to experience wealth accumulation. You only experience transaction cycles. And here's what actually happens to your spending behavior. Most people increase their spending right after getting paid. Research tracking thousands of households found that discretionary spending spikes in the 3 days after payday, then drops off sharply as the next check gets closer. We literally spend ourselves back to zero twice a month like clockwork. But here's the part nobody talks about. This is engineered. The system has conditioned us to think in 2-week increments, not years, not decades, 2 weeks. Your employer pays you just often enough to keep you showing up, but not often enough for you to accumulate serious capital. Your bills are structured to hit throughout the month, so there's never a period where you have real breathing room. And your brain, trying to make sense of it all, learns to spend when you have it because, on some level, you know it's going to disappear anyway. This is the salary trap, and it's not about your discipline. It's not about your budget. It's about a system that's engineered to keep you dependent on the next deposit. Let me show you exactly how this trap works. Every 2 weeks, your brain goes through the same cycle. Paycheck arrives, dopamine hit, relief, safety. Then, over the next 13 days, that feeling slowly drains away. By day 12, you're checking your balance before every purchase. By day 13, you're mentally calculating if you can make it one more day on what's left. This isn't just anecdotal. This is documented in behavioral economics research. A study tracking financial decision-making across the payday cycle found that people make dramatically different choices depending on where they are in that 2-week window. Right after payday, people are more likely to make long-term financial decisions. They'll contribute to retirement accounts. They'll schedule that dentist appointment they've been putting off. They'll even make healthier food choices. Right before payday, all of that reverses. People become more short-term focused. They're more likely to take out payday loans. They choose cheaper, less healthy food. They put off anything that costs money. Same person, same income, different day in the cycle. And the problem is, this psychological scarcity doesn't just affect your spending, it affects your cognitive capacity. Research from Princeton and Harvard found that financial stress actually reduces your effective IQ by about 13 points. That's like losing a full night's sleep every single week. You're not making bad decisions because you're stupid. You're making bad decisions because the salary system is literally making you dumber twice a month. But here's where it gets really interesting. Most people think getting a raise solves this problem. More money, more breathing room, right? Wrong. Research tracking professionals across different income levels found something shocking. When people get a $50,000 raise, on average, they increase their monthly spending by $2,000. Except after taxes, that $50,000 raise only actually gives them about $30,000 in take-home pay. That's $2,500 per month. So they're spending 80% of their raise before they even get it. A study of physicians, people making $300,000 per year, found that 4 doctors with identical salaries had completely different wealth outcomes. Dr. Anderson, spending $80,000 annually, achieved financial independence in 11 years. Dr. Davidson, spending $200,000 annually, remained trapped in golden handcuffs despite identical income. When one physician upgraded mid-career from $120,000 to $200,000 in annual spending, his required retirement nest egg jumped from $3 million to $5 million. Same job, same income, totally different financial future. Because the salary trap isn't just about what you make, it's about what happens to your brain when you make more. Psychologists call this self-licensing. Your brain gives you permission to spend after you've worked hard. I survived that brutal project, I deserve this $3,000 watch. I just got promoted, I deserve to upgrade my car. I worked 70-hour weeks, I deserve this vacation. And you do deserve those things. But here's the trap. Your brain starts to finding it deserving in relation to your effort, not your actual financial position. One elegant purchase makes everything else look shabby. That's called the Diderot effect. Buy a beautiful couch, suddenly your coffee table looks cheap. Upgrade the table, now the lamp seems outdated. Before you know it, you've redecorated your entire living room because of one small purchase. This is why lifestyle inflation is so insidious. It's not one big decision, it's 1,000 small upgrades that feel totally reasonable in the moment. But here's what those upgrades actually cost. Let's say you get that $50,000 raise I mentioned earlier. And let's say you do the reasonable thing and increase your spending by $2,000 per month. That's $24,000 per year in additional spending. Now, what if instead of spending that money, you invested it? At a conservative 7% annual return over 30 years, that $2,000 per month becomes $2.4 million. Not a typo, $2.4 million. That reasonable lifestyle upgrade just cost you a multi-million dollar retirement. Let me break down exactly what this looks like with real numbers. Year 1, you invest $24,000. With returns, you end the year with about $25,680. Year 5, you've invested $120,000 total. Your account shows $143,000. You're starting to see compound interest work. Year 10, invested $240,000, account value $331,000. You've earned nearly $100,000 just from returns. Year 20, invested $480,000, account value $984,000. You're about to cross the $1 million mark. Year 30, invested $720,000, account value $2.4 million. That's the difference between spending your raise and investing it. That $2,000 monthly car payment, over 7 years, that's $168,000 in payments, not invested, just gone. That $800 monthly lifestyle upgrade to a nicer apartment, over 10 years, that's $96,000 you'll never see again. That $150 monthly subscription creep, Netflix, Spotify, gym membership you don't use, meal kit service, premium everything, over 20 years, that's $36,000. Most people think these numbers are too small to matter. They're not. And it gets worse, because you're not just spending that money. You're also creating new fixed costs that lock you into a higher earning requirement. Most people don't realize this until it's too late, but every lifestyle upgrade creates a new floor you can't fall below. That nicer apartment? Now you need to make X dollars per year just to cover rent. That car payment? Another $500 per month you can't not pay. Those subscriptions, memberships, services, each one is a small bleed that adds up to a big requirement. Most people hit their peak earning years, usually between 45 and 54, making about $66,000 per year. But by that point, they've built a lifestyle that requires $65,000 per year to maintain. They're making more than they ever have, but they're more financially stressed than they were at 25. Because the salary trap isn't just about income, it's about the ratchet effect. Every time you increase your spending, you lock in a new baseline. And unlike income, which can go down, spending almost never does. Most people who experience a salary decrease never proportionally decrease their spending. They go into debt instead. The trap tightens. But here's the most insidious part of the salary trap. It's not just stealing your money. It's stealing your time. The average American works 260 days per year. They get paid 26 times per year if they're on a biweekly schedule. That means they're trading 10 days of their life for each paycheck. And what does that paycheck buy them? Not freedom, not time, not security. It buys them permission to do it again for another 2 weeks. This is what people mean when they say they're living paycheck to paycheck. And it's not just low-income workers. A survey by the American Payroll Association found that 68% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, including 30% of people making over $100,000 per year. Think about that. 3 out of 10 people making 6 figures can't cover their expenses if one paycheck disappears. They're not literally spending every dollar, although many are. They're trapped in a time cycle where they can't see past the next deposit. Studies of personal savings rates show this perfectly. In November 2025, the U.S. personal savings rate stood at just 3.5% of disposable income. That's down from the pandemic peak of 31.8% in April 2020. Why such a dramatic drop? In 2020, during pandemic lockdowns, the personal savings rate averaged 15.1%, the highest in modern history. Why? Not because people were suddenly more financially disciplined, because they couldn't spend money on their normal lifestyle expenses. No commuting costs, no eating out, No "I deserve this" purchases because they finished a hard week at the office. The system was temporarily broken. And what happened? People saved more in 1 year than they had in the previous decade combined. But as soon as the economy reopened in 2022, the savings rate crashed to 3.0%, lower than it had been before the pandemic. Not because people were less disciplined, because the salary trap snapped back into place. The commute returned, the office culture returned, the spending triggers returned, and the savings rate? Back to historical lows. Current data from late 2025 shows we're at 3.5%, essentially unchanged, because the salary trap isn't about personal discipline. It's about a system that optimizes for consumer spending, not wealth accumulation. Your employer wants you productive, not rich. Banks want you borrowing, not saving. Retailers want you buying, not investing. And the biweekly paycheck, that seemingly neutral administrative choice, is actually the perfect mechanism to keep you on that treadmill. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, biweekly pay is the most common payment frequency in America. It's not because it's best for workers, it's because it optimizes cash flow for employers while keeping employees in a predictable spending cycle. Here's where it all comes together. As you make more money, you don't just spend more, you also become more afraid to make changes. Lawyers making $225,000 stay in jobs they hate because their lifestyle requires $180,000 just to maintain. Doctors making $300,000 can't retire at 55 like they planned because they're still paying off the lifestyle they bought in their 30s. Tech workers making $400,000 won't take the startup job they're excited about because they can't afford the pay cut. This is called the golden handcuffs. You're not staying for opportunity. You're staying because you've built a financial prison that requires that specific salary to maintain. And here's the really dark part. The higher your salary goes, the tighter the handcuffs get. Because at $50,000 per year, you can live on $45,000 if you have to. But at $250,000 per year, living on $200,000 feels impossible, even though $200,000 is 4 times what you were living on before. Most people in this position will tell you they need their current salary. They don't. They need their current lifestyle. The trap scales with your income, and by the time most people realize they're in it, they're so financially committed to their lifestyle that they can't see a way out. They've become dependent on a system that was never designed to set them free. Let me show you what this looks like 10 years from now. Person A makes $75,000 per year. They increase their spending to $73,000 per year, saving $2,000 annually. Not much, but something. Person B gets a raise to $125,000 per year. They increase their spending to $122,000 per year, still saving $3,000 annually, still being responsible. 10 years pass. Person A has saved $20,000 plus investment returns. They have options. They can take 6 months off to explore a new career. They can weather a job loss. They have the beginning of freedom. Person B has saved $30,000 plus investment returns. Sounds better, right? Except person B now requires $122,000 per year to maintain their lifestyle. They can't take that 6-month break. They can't weather a job loss without immediately downgrading their entire life. They're trapped in a narrow band of jobs that can support their spending. Person A has flexibility. Person B has golden handcuffs. Same responsible savings rate, completely different financial freedom. And in 20 years, 30 years, person A, who stayed in their modest lifestyle, has built a portfolio that generates passive income. They can work because they want to, not because they have to. Person B, who succeeded by every traditional measure, bigger house, nicer car, better vacations, is still dependent on that next paycheck, still checking their balance before big purchases, still living in 2-week increments. Because the salary trap doesn't care about your income. It cares about the gap between what you make and what you spend. And most people spend their entire career closing that gap from the wrong direction. They increase their income to meet their spending instead of decreasing their spending to build their wealth. The system wants you to believe that making more is the answer. But the actual answer, the answer that creates freedom, is spending less than you make and investing the difference. Not for a month, not for a year, for decades. That's how you escape the trap. Look, the salary trap is real, it's powerful, and it's affecting almost everyone watching this video. But here's the thing about traps. Once you can see them, they lose their power. You can't unsee what I just showed you. The next time you get that paycheck deposit and feel that little rush of relief, you're going to recognize it for what it is. The next time you get a raise and immediately start thinking about what you can finally afford, you're going to pause. The next time you're on day 12 of your pay cycle and feeling broke despite making good money, you're going to understand why. And that awareness, that's the first step out. You get to decide what you do with your next paycheck. You get to decide whether that raise becomes a lifestyle upgrade or a wealth accelerator. You get to decide if you're building freedom or building handcuffs. The system wants you to think in 2-week increments. You can choose to think in decades instead. The question isn't whether you make enough money. The question is, what are you building with the money you make? Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.